Hi everybody, welcome back. If you've been following along, today we're going to do commercial leases. And again, this is not specific to Maryland, except lesson 5 down here might be specific to Maryland, but we have 5 lessons here. We're going to try to get this done on one video. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. We'll see how long this is. So if you're interested in commercial leases, follow along. Okay. Commercial property. The role of the licensee, which you're planning on being in the future. Will your role change as a commercial lease? I have personally never done a commercial lease, so this is pretty interesting to me. All right, let's see what. Commercial real estate includes office buildings, industrial properties, medical centers, hotels, malls, retail stores, farmland, warehouses, garages, large multifamily residential, and business owners often hire real estate licensees to help them find rental space. This is especially true if the business has unique needs and the right type of commercial space is at a premium. So, landlord representative. Landlords need brokers to find tenants, so they may either hire an in-house broker or contract with a broker or a brokerage firm. Landlords use brokers because they need their expertise. Commercial real estate isn't like residential real estate, and commercial real estate is more complex because business needs are more complex than housing needs, and commercial landlords usually don't have the time or skills to market and negotiate leases for their properties. Commercial tenant representatives work with commercial tenants to help them find places to meet the specific needs of their space. All right, let's go over here and see if we can list and market the property. Is this part of the licensee's role? Now, in my brokerage, when I was at KW, we had a separate branch for all commercial stuff. So that's why I'm not too familiar with the commercial side, because we would just send everybody over there. They would manage all the commercial, because you got to get a special certification if you want to do commercial real estate. It's a lot more complex, and it's a lot more math. So if that interests you and you're mathy, you might want to get in that. You can also make a lot more money. Manage eviction procedures for tenants who fail to comply. I don't think we do that. Oversee the maintenance of the building. I don't think we do that. Negotiate leases. I'm not too sure. Maybe. All right, let's see how we did on these answers. Okay, I got them all right. So if you want to take a screenshot there, go ahead while I'm reading some more. Most licensees prefer to choose one or the other, landlord or tenant representative, because each type of representative needs unique skills, and each representative has its own risk and reward. Let me scroll down here a second. Okay, building a commercial real estate business is building relationships with brokers, building owners. It's the same with investors. It's just that you're doing it with business owners that need property. So let me see. Let me scroll down. You want to take another screenshot of any of these questions, and then we're going to move on. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next thing so we don't run out of time. Working as a tenant representative, what 3 things can you expect to do for them? Assist them in a suitable place, represent the interests, and assist them in preparing the lease. All those 3 things you're going to help them do. You are not going to convince them that your client has a profitable business. That's not your job. All right, commercial lease basics. All right, regardless whether you're a property manager or a tenant, there is commercial lease basics. Let's see. A lease is a contract between a property owner and property user. The owner, the lessor, I'm going to see the landlord with the or in it. Maybe that's how you can remember it. Or you could do owner has O and an R at the, there's an O at the front and an R at the end. That might be how you remember lessor, because they have it written that way on your exams. They don't write owner and tenant. They'll put lessor and lessee. So it can be confusing. So that might be a good way to remember the lessor here. Okay? Because I know I have trouble with this. Owner has an O in the front, R at the end, and it's a lessor has an O-R in it. All right. So the tenant lessee is given the right to operate a business in the property. There are many different types of property lease arrangements. Leasing is very popular with both small business owners, and lease arrangements allow new or financially strapped businesses to divert their capital to other business needs. Benefits of leasing versus buying. Credit ratings are not crucial for leasing. There is no equity loss when you lease. Monthly rent is a tax deduction or business expense. If the business grows more quickly than expected, a decision to move to a larger premises can be executed quickly. Whereas if you own a home and you outgrow the home or whatever you're buying, if you buy the whole property and you outgrow the warehouse pretty quickly, then you're stuck. All right, the drawbacks of leasing is there can be many hidden costs in a lease if you're not aware of them. I'm going to go shut this window because we got a lot of noise out here. Okay, hopefully you can't hear it. The tenant may have limited control over what the owner lets them do to the property. So you're not going to be able to make a lot of changes because you don't own it. A commercial lease, like any other lease, is a, okay, I want to say contract, and therefore is legally binding. The tenant is, we just went over this. Remember, I told you how to remember doing that. All right, so let's move on. All right, why the commercial world likes leases. Leasing is very popular with small business owners. Why do you think that? Determine each statement about the popularity of lease. Lease arrangements allow new or financially strapped businesses to divert their capital. Business owners can often make more money if they can appreciation of the building in which the business is conducted. I don't know about that one. Although it takes a lot of cash up front to lease, the long-term benefits of leasing outweigh the initial costs. I don't know. Okay, so the last one's false. Leasing doesn't require a lot of up cash. Okay. Okay, business owners can often make more money on their business than they can on the appreciation of the building in which that business is conducted. Commercial lease benefits and drawbacks. The requirement for excellent credit is less of an issue. Limited control over what the property owner can do, and lack of equity in the building. I don't know if that's a drawback or not. Yeah, that's a drawback. Okay. So it's a benefit, drawback, and drawback. Okay, so let's go on. So far, there's nothing magical here. They're pretty basic. Okay, the types of commercial leases. All right, there are three primary types of commercial leases. Let's look at this. Let's open this in a new tab. We got some pretty pictures. Commercial leases come in three primary types. Expenses are paid by the landlord. Expenses are included in the lease payment. and how the lease rate is computed. All these types of things, if you want to get into commercial real estate, you will have to know. Now, most of this, I don't recall seeing a lot of commercial real estate problems on my exam because commercial real estate has its own separate exam. So I'm not really sure why we're going into this, but it's good to know it anyway. If it interests you, then you can go into a whole new thing. I might end up doing that myself, actually, because you can make a lot more money doing commercial real estate. But like I said, it also takes a little bit longer to get because it's harder. So the simplest lease form is where all the expenses related to the property are paid by the landlord. And I'm assuming they mean like utilities, janitorial expenses, which allows the base rent to remain stable. These are called full service leases. And from a tenant's perspective, the benefit of a full service lease is in the event that the costs for insurance or taxes or maintenance go up, it would not affect the rate, which would be helpful if you are a small business owner and you are on a tight budget. Okay, modified gross leases are part of the net included in part of the base rent, unlike a triple net lease. It is important to define what part of the nets have been included or modified. Modified gross leases are frequently used for multi-tenant industrial buildings and single-story office properties. All right, the net leases is when the person that's renting, I guess a lessee, the lessee with a lease, right? Maybe that's how to remember that. The tenant pays all the expenses, the taxes included. The taxes are not included. So this is, I don't know in what case you would want to use this. The landscaping, the parking lots, the fire sprinkles, all tenants share. So I guess that's if a lot of people are in one building. If you're sharing like a space in a building, that I guess that's when this would come into play. Each would have to cover part of all this stuff. That's the only way I can think the when you would do that. Absolute net leases. They are NNN, triple net leases. They are an important difference. In triple net leases, there are a few legal defenses which may relieve a tenant of payment responsibilities. For example, a triple net lease may relieve the tenant of payment responsibility if the property is subject to eminent domain proceeding. If you're confused on what eminent domain is, we have a video on that, and I believe I labeled it as such. So if you need to go back and review what that is, we're not going to do that here on this video. With an absolute triple net lease, there are no legal defenses if a tenant fails to meet the lease payment obligations. Okay. A percentage lease. More commonly in retail properties and shopping centers and malls, they pay a base rent plus an additional charge of the tenant's gross sales. So, wow. So whenever your sales gross are met, then you have to pay a certain percentage on your sales. That would kind of suck. So often the tenant begins by paying the base rent with a percentage rent kicking in at a specific amount of gross sales are met. Percentage charge is stepped up gradually as the tenant's business grows. That's not an incentive to go into a shopping mall. I'm making money now, but now I have to give more away to the mall. All right, we may need to come back to this. I don't know. Let's see what these questions are. What are the three primary types of commercial leases? All right, so we got gross, net, and percentage. All right, commercial lease categories. The landlord pays all the expenses, which I think was the net. Let's see. Why not in a net? Or was that gross? That was gross. Okay, never mind. That's gross. The tenant pays some of them separately, net, and then percentage of the gross sales. All right, let's look at gross lease a little more. All right, the taxes the landlord pays, insurance landlord pays, and maintenance landlord pays. So that sounds like the best deal to me. All right, net leases can be net, double, or triple. Which of these does the tenant pay? Tenant pays the taxes, insurance, maintenance. Natural break even, percentage. Why choose a percentage lease? The tenant brings consumers to the landlord's retail space. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, I got that right. I mean, it didn't really say in there. But the tenant wants to keep this. So the base must be really low. Because I don't really see any advantage at all for that. All right, what is a typical lease for a multi-tenant industrial building? And wasn't it triple net or absolute net? NNNN, I think it's NNN, triple net. I don't know. Let's see. No. Okay, let's try it again. Absolute lease? No. All right. See, I'm guessing because I really don't know. All right, obviously, we know what it is, right? Modified gross. Modified gross. Where does it say that in here? Modified gross. I don't even see that in here. Modified gross. Oh, here it is, right here. Okay. Modified gross. Part of the base rent. Unlike a triple net, this agreement includes 1, 2, or 3 net as part of the base rent. Okay. So, such as a shopping mall and shopping center. Okay. Modified gross lease is typically for a multi-tenant industrial building or single-story office buildings because they include all the nets and the base rent, but not utilities or janitorial services. Lawful leases provide rental or floor space for open loft spaces. And lease of that space is generally wide open and has limited services. Loft has very few interior walls. Okay, what is a full service lease? Okay. It includes everything in one price. Full service lease. The tenant only has to write one check per month and the amount remains stable except for the normal progression of rent. Oh my goodness. I would say yes on this. Rent covered, utilities, janitorial. From a tenant's perspective, the benefit of a full service lease is the event that the costs for insurance, taxes, or CAM go up. This expense would not include tenant lock-in lease rates. For the tenant's perspective, the benefit of full service lease would go up. This expense would not affect the tenant's lock-in rates. Right, I guess that's true. Let's see how we did. Okay, so all of them are true except for the last one. The benefit of a full-service lease are all on the tenant's side. The landlord doesn't stand to make any profit. Okay, I should have picked that one up. Of course, the landlord's going to make a profit. Otherwise, why would he be doing it? Or she be doing it? Okay, let's turn this off. We don't need that now. Other commercial lease types. Okay, let's look at this. Proprietary lease, like cooperative apartments who purchase shares of the corporation that own the building. The leaseholder does not own the apartment, but a lease to the unit. The ground lease is which the tenant intends to build. The tenant leases the property on which the tenant intends to build. When the when the lease expires, the improvement belongs to the landowner. And generally, a net lease is used when the tenant must pay the rent, taxes, insurance, plus repairs. And a net ground lease typically has a term of under 50 years. So under these special lease agreements, oil and gas leases, the lease typically gives the oil or gas company time to determine whether oil or gas exists and a deadline by which drilling must begin. All right, let's look at these questions and see if we can answer them. I want to say this one is territorial. This one is ground. Excuse me. Bless me. Then the next one is utility company. So if they word them like this in the test, you should be fine. Because of the utility company, you know it's going to be oil or gas. And this one says the property, leases the property, so you know it's ground, right? So that could help you. All right, let's look at this. Which type of lease has a lease to the residential unit? I think it's this one. This term of lease designed to be long enough for the tenant to recoup the investment for the outlay of the cash to build the building. With this type of lease, when the lease expires, any improvements to the property belong to the landowner. I want to say this one. This type of lease typically gives the oil or gas company time to determine whether oil or gas exists and a deadline by which the drilling must begin. Well, if it's drilling, I'm thinking it must be oil or gas. If this type of lease is exercised, the landlord generally receives royalty on the oil or gas extracted. All right. Let's see what it says here. This can be tricky. 3 of the statements describe an oil or gas lease, 2 describe a ground lease, and 1 describes a territory. Okay. So it must be ground lease. Okay. All right, so that one must be ground lease. And if you want to take any screenshots, you have to do it quickly because we're getting running out of time here. We already got in here like 23 minutes. So I'll probably have to do the exam on another video because I never know if I'm going to pass the first time or not. My goal in the future is to have these live and we all can do these tests together. And we can do it as a study group, but we need to get at least 10,000 subscribers, maybe 15, before we start doing that. I mean, we really don't need like a whole bunch of people. We only need 15, 20 people in a class, realistically. All right, so let's see, commercial lease. This might be specific to Maryland. I'm not sure. We can see. All right, but if it is, then you need to find out what it is in your state, which, like I said before, I don't really think they put this on the salesperson residential test. I've never seen any commercial questions, so I don't really think you need to concentrate on this because commercial has its own exam, and if you are planning on going into commercial, then you will definitely need to know your state laws. All right, at a minimum, which of the following components should all leases contain? And some of this is common sense. Of course, you're going to need the name and signatures. You're going to need to know how much money it is. It could be this one too. Let's see. There are 5 correct answers. Okay, so this one, this one, this one. Maybe this one. That's correct. Okay, so all of this stuff needs to be on the lease for commercial property. And it says Maryland, so it could be specific to Maryland. Sample commercial lease agreement. Many times the amount of insurance included in the lease is higher than the amount the tenant actually carries, and higher than the amount the landlord actually requires. Let me see here. The lease is higher than the amount, it says right here, and the amount the landlord requires. Landlords are not required to specify the amounts they carry on the building. Landlords should specify the amounts the landlord carries on the building to provide the tenant with the comfort that the building is adequately insured. Tenants are not at liberty to negotiate the insurance requirement. I'm trying to see if that's true or not. I don't really think you can. Additionally, sometimes the tenant asks the landlord to identify, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. All right. Are not at liberty to negotiation requirements. I'm going to say false on that. I'm not sure. I don't see anything in here on it. Indemnity provisions in the lease usually require the tenant pay a landlord damages in the event the claim is filed against the landlord in connection with matters arising from lease. I'm going to say true. Indemnity goes hand in hand with insurance. Usually require that a tenant pay a landlord for damages in the event a foul is claimed against the landlord. I'm losing my voice. I gotta go get some water. Okay, let's see. A tenant's indemnity usually includes claim or losses. Arising from a landlord agent's negligence or willful misconduct. Here it is right here. A tenant's indemnity is usually limited to matters arising and does not include those claims from a landlord's negligence. I'm going to say false on that one. A landlord seldom agreed to a tenant's request to identify the tenant from liability. All right, let's see how we did. Not too bad, I guess. We're going to have to take this again. So let's look at what we have here. Okay, so landlords are not required to specify the amounts. False. True. I guess they don't have to. I thought here it said they did, but apparently they don't. Okay, tenants are not at liberty to negotiate the requirements. Just false. So the other one we got wrong here was the last one, which is false. Landlords usually agree to these requests because the landlord's insurance covers the common areas. All right, let's take this again. And right off the bat, I know this is false because we just did this. Okay. All right, let's look at this for a second. I think this one is true. This one is true. And this one is false. And this one's true. And this one's false and false. And let's go back and look at these one more time. We're running out of time here. I think this is our last unit on this. If anybody wants to take a screenshot. This is a little bit confusing. Indemnity provisions. If you don't know what indemnity is, you could Google that. I would probably do that right now, but we're running out of time on this video. Okay, let's move on. I think that's the still got another question. Because of the expense in moving in a commercial enterprise, most commercial tenants want an option to renew their lease. That's true. Review of legal points. Who should be responsible for ensuring that all legal points and the lease will hold up in a court of law? There is only one person in this list. Okay. Maybe an attorney? Oh, an attorney. Okay. The only person that should be reviewing the legal points is an attorney. All right. Components of a commercial lease. All right. I think that's it on this lesson. So the unit exam we'll have to do on the next video. It's 8 questions. So if you're interested in getting some more questions that might help you on the test, just come on back. Thank you all.